and with the playlist. I'm so excited today to be moderating this Q&A for this fantastic movie. Did you enjoy it? Please join me in welcoming. First off, he is not only the star of this film, but he's also the writer of this film. He is a 7-time Emmy nominee, and he is a 3-time SAG Award nominee. Please welcome Mr. Will Arnett. And not to be outdone, she's a 4-time SAG nominee and winner, and an Emmy winner, and an Oscar winner, the one and only Laura Dern. So, first, Will, the most obvious question. I know that you met John Bishop, who is a UK-based comedian, and he had an experience like that in the film in his own life. When you heard his story for the first time, did it seem too fictional to be real? Like, what was your reaction to it?
First of all, thank you all for coming tonight. When you said the most obvious question, I thought you were going to say, what are you doing here? It's a valid question. When he told me the story in person with not the idea of inspiring me to write a script, when he was just telling me the story of how he became a stand-up, I found it so incredible. And there were certain elements that I found incredible. Not that John Bishop is a very successful comedian, especially in the UK. He's very well known and he's a really funny guy. But when he was describing to me the relief that he got from stand-up, something that he had never done before, and the ability to kind of connect with himself in a way that he hadn't, and then ultimately after months, when his soon-to-be ex-wife came and saw him, which is also totally true, by chance saw him, and it instigated a conversation, and then they started to see each other secretly, and they kept it from everybody in their lives. And then how that transformed them and how they were able to start having a dialogue. I found that to be so compelling, and it was just something that I really felt like needed to be investigated further and told.
And so you worked on a screenplay, you worked with Mark Chappell on it.
Yeah.
And how did Bradley get into the picture? How did he come on board?
So Bradley, Bradley and I have been friends for almost 25, next month it'll be 25 years. And we were traveling together back to the East Coast from California at like around Christmas time. And he was in a break making he was shooting Maestro, and he's on a 6-week break. And we were talking about Maestro, and he had shown me some pieces of it. A lot of his friends, he was showing us stuff, and then he said, what are you working on? And I told him this story, the basic tenets of it, and that that Mark and I were writing this script. And I said, we're kind of at an impasse. We're working on drafts, and it feels too much like a romantic comedy, and we don't know where we're going with it. And Bradley said, let me take a look at it, and I'll give you my thoughts, which is, he's such a great filmmaker, and anytime somebody like that offers to take a look at it, most of the time, as a lot of you probably know, you're like, hey, do you want to read my script? They're like, I'd love to, but, I'm busy for the next 5 years. You're like, oh God, I gotta read so-and-so's scripts, Jesus. And, but he was very generous in that way, and he knew that it was important to me. And so I sent it to him, and a week later he called me and he said, he FaceTimed me, and he said, hey man, I loved it, and if you'd let me, I'd like to direct it, and I'd like to rewrite it with you guys. And that was just like, I was so surprised, and I said, I should have said, let me think about it. I should have made it work. But I said, yeah, of course, that would be amazing. That's how that started.
When you were working on it, did you always want to star in it? Was that always the goal?
I think so. I went through times where I think initially I saw it as something that I just wanted to write, and I wasn't sure what it would be. And then as Mark and I were first writing drafts, I thought, yeah, this is something I'd like to do. It felt like a departure from other stuff that I had done. And but I wasn't sure that people would make it with me in that role, to be honest. And actually, one of the things that Bradley said, one of the first things is, he said, I see that first set when Alex is standing there, and I see your face filling the frame, and I know how I want to. That was the first thing he said. I know how I want to shoot that, and he never deviated from that. And he says, and I see you doing it. You've got to do it. And when he kind of sort of had that, he put that belief in me that it was something I could do. We were kind of off and running.
So Laura, you have been friends with Bradley for a long time, and I know you've been trying to work together forever. How did he approach you about this, and what made you want to say yes?
He asked me. He asked me in his kitchen. He was describing the movie and, describing why he was so excited by it and what he was feeling in he and Will's conversations. And that they were working on it to really find the core of this relationship. And also, which is one of the things I fell so in love with the first time I read the script, that they were trying to figure out a way to capture relationship without leading the viewer to know what the main characters don't know, which is how we got here, or how to find our way out of it, or how we find our way back to ourselves. That the beginning, the dialogue isn't there to manipulate you to feel something or be given a backstory. We're all in it together, trying to figure out what happened.
So you no doubt, because you wrote it, must have a backstory in your head about what happened to them. But for you, did you have to create a backstory for Tess and Alex's relationship in your own head to sort of understand the character, at least at the beginning?
I feel so privileged talking about it, and with fellow actors on an acting level, because it was so unique and amazing. And Bradley also being an actor, we were really blessed that the process and the commitment to be true was all that mattered to him and Will, and therefore us together, which was know each other, trust each other, become each other's best friend and husband and wife of 25 years, go. and that was the goal. It wasn't about any experience I've had of, let's go to dinner and talk about how they first met. We started with workshops and deep diving and sharing our life stories and our childhoods and sharing that kind of intimacy with Bradley as well. Read-throughs and script, continuing to ask questions constantly, but it was about I was gifted the promise of intimacy by Will, like I've never had with another actor. And it was really brave and bold and so beautiful, and where he was and gave us this incredible performance, where he was gonna go, and he needed a team to do it with. And so everything was like the promise when you meet a stranger and you don't know where the relationship's gonna go, but you have a vision or a dream because you're falling in love. It felt like that kind of journey. We went through it together.
Well, I wanted to ask, I know that he wasn't the only camera operator, but also Bradley, as you're aware, basically joined the union so he could be a camera operator and shoot many of these scenes that he wasn't in himself. And I'm curious, you're both friends with him. He's up running the camera and being intimate, and he's your director. You no doubt have had great relationships with other directors, but what is that experience like, especially in a film like this?
Totally unique. He was so close, and if I may, just so you can physically see, Brad, we did the whole movie with Bradley like this. And, a person that we both know really, really well. And I will say that as an actor, what it served to do was, in a lot of ways, kind of, you approach a scene and you think, we've got this scene, we want to do this thing where, there's this scene with Alex and Tess, etc., and all these things that are that might take place in any given scene. When you have the director right there and he's talking to you and you start rolling, there's no hard action and cut. Everything was a conversation you start talking about the scene. We didn't really rehearse the scenes or rehearse blocking ever. And then they'd start to roll. Bradley would put the camera on, he'd be talking, okay. And then you'd start, and you'd kind of go into the scene seamlessly. And as a result of that, it never felt like you were performing. It wasn't like, and action, go, which is often the case. It just felt like everything just kind of happened and flowed really seamlessly. It was a very interesting process. So everything just kind of felt very genuine and real at all times. And it was very unique.
And also, correct me if I'm wrong, also, he did a lot of long takes. He cut through them and mixed them, but this was not like long shot, close up. Like it was much more free flowing in a way.
Yes, I mean, by the way, Bradley always had like a real vision for everything he wanted, every scene, but lots of scenes. For instance, the scene where we're looking for lice in each other's hair. We're trying to think of a scene that would sort of show the intimacy between these two people, and that scene was something that sort of came from an idea actually of Mel's, John Bishop's real life wife, via Laura, and that scene was all basically just kind of picking, roving from piece to piece. Bradley knew he wanted the kids in the places they were, and he wanted each of us in the place we were. And then it just felt very free flow. So it wasn't, like you say, we didn't shoot a master and then get in and shoot close-ups. And as a result, again, it never feels performative because it's all just happening in real time.
And I'm assuming it also doesn't feel performative because, in case you're unaware, there's zero ADR in this movie. Like, Bradley does not believe in it, from what I understand.
No, one line.
Yeah.
Did you know that while you were shooting it, and you wish you did? I'm also, I never know whether actors feel like, oh, I can't wait to go back and like re-record that line because maybe I want to say it better. Maybe that's not something you ever think about.
I am so thrilled that there was no ADR. I can't tell you.
Yeah.
Well, just because it's an authentic experience that we all have to figure out how to try to make honest, but we're in a room now from this character that we left 6 months ago and trying to make it sound accurate with like beeps before we have to get there to have this feeling. I find it complicated, but Steve Morrow, who's the most incredible sound guru, who Bradley met on American Sniper, right? And they've been together ever since.
Yeah.
And it was so important to them that all the dialogue and all the sound was from the space we were in. So you felt the cellar, you felt New York City.
And and as a lot of you know, when you're doing a scene, a big club scene or a wedding scene or a funeral, a big group scene, oftentimes people have to mime in the background and everybody sort of quiets and they might start the music to begin with, just so you get the vibe, and then they lower the music, and then, or you have to speak louder because they're like, the music's gonna be loud in the scene, and all these things that you have to kind of fake didn't exist. Everybody was mic'd at all times, in the club, I'm doing stand-up, the club is all mic'd, everybody's mic'd, and it just, again, lent itself to a sort of an authenticity that it just felt you could just be very real in the moment.
So I have to also ask you, obviously I was unaware of this. For some reason, I thought you had done stand-up at some point in your career, and I'm sure you've been dragged up on stage for something once and again. But what was the experience of learning how to do stand-up for this role, or had you done it years before and just said, "Nah, I don't want to ever go there"?
No, again, I thought you were going to say I've been dragged off stage. I feel like that has happened. No, I'd never done stand-up, and so it was a new thing for me. And I've always had a tremendous amount of respect for what stand-ups do, not just the performing of it, but actually writing stand-up. Just to me seems like such a huge mountain to climb. To do it well, you just realize, what talent it takes to do it. And so I hadn't done it. So we wrote all these sets for Alex, and I started going when we were in pre-production. Going to the cellar in New York on McPherson Street and going up as Alex Novak every night for 6 weeks, like 3 times a night. And then during the day, rewriting a lot of that stand-up, sort of discovering what was going to work. We had an idea, we had sets that were in place, And then all of that changed right up until the day before we started shooting, because we shot all the stand-up stuff first, so it kind of had some runway to it. Again, as an actor, what a luxury to be able to rehearse, in effect, for 6 weeks with real audiences. So I get introduced as Alex Novak. Some people thought I was doing some lame bit or something, who maybe recognized me or thought I was losing my mind. And I would go up there, and it was a very narrow target, because even though I hadn't done stand-up, I think there's always that inclination, as you guys know, as a performer, you think like, well, I'm gonna do my best in the, maybe in the moment I'll try to win the audience over or something. And there was a moment early on, the first time I went up to the cellar, where Bradley stopped me before I went out, and he said, we're doing something different. Meaning, don't go up there and try to be you and try to figure out a way to make some people laugh. And go up there and be this guy who's never done it before. And that ended up being this weird hurdle / target that I was trying to hit and try to understand. And that was the assignment.
And just doing that experience, I think I read somewhere that you had gone on a comedy club in maybe Arizona or something, and like had bombed. And did that experience help? Like going out and bombing? Well, like, did that help you understand it more?
That is true. It wasn't, well, we went once in Texas because Shane Gillis was very kind. We were asking him about stand-up, and he gave us some time there. That was the first time I did it. But no, it was at embarrassingly enough, it was at the cellar, and Laura came so gracious and came to a bunch of the stand-up I was doing in that time. But we were at the cellar one night, and it was a Saturday night, and I'd thrown in some other stuff because it was a big raucous crowd. So we were trying out some stuff that Alex would never do. Came, and it was great, killed. It took like 15 minutes, and everybody was into it. They'd had a few. And went upstairs, and Bradley and our friend Bob, who's a comedy writer, and I were sitting there, we're like, wow, I just drilled it. This is the top of the world. Maybe I could do stand-up. Oh my God. When this is all over, I'm gonna call Ted Sarandos and get a big comedy special. Right? Like all these, and Liz, who's the manager who plays herself in the film at the cellar, she goes, hey, you can go around the corner, there's a spot open right now. I'm like, great. Go around the corner, go up, nothing. Like dead silent. And the only laughter in the back is Bradley and our buddy Bob. They're just dying. They're doubled over laughing at me. And I'm up there. It was the first time that like bombed, where like just literally nothing. Like people look at people's face. I wish they hated me. It was just nothing.
And it was the identical set.
And it was the identical set from 5 minutes before, the exact same material. But what was interesting was it did. I learned a lot from that too. I mean, it was absurd. At a certain point, I was laughing because it was so absurd. But also, yeah, of course, you take that with you. Like, what is that idea of somebody who going up there and getting zero reaction? And in the long run, it was so helpful to me just going into playing Alex.
Laura, I have to ask you, speaking of the cellar and scenes while Will's character's doing stand-up, one of the images of the film that like resonates with me the most is when your character is realizing for the first time that her husband is telling their life story out on stage. And I know you knew what the words were, but I know that you had not seen Will perform it before you experienced it on screen. Can you talk about shooting that scene and what was going sort of through your mind playing her at that time?
Well, it was an incredible opportunity, back to what we were saying about Bradley, a fellow actor and a filmmaker who wants to see human behavior while it's unfolding, that he would want to hold on someone going through the experience of discovery, to see everything, him in a moment in time that I had no idea was happening, but it's the man or part of the man that I first fell in love with, learning that he's, someone else, and ultimately sharing that he misses me, like all those things, going through that entire journey, but having Bradley with me to experience it all, as opposed to we're going to shoot this little piece of you when you react to the, section 1 of his stand-up, and then we'll come back and we'll do from another angle, all the things that can kind of break up having the opportunity to breathe through this experience was blessed. And Bradley was right. Right here.
I was doing stand-up in that
Yeah.
moment, and I couldn't see Laura, because Bradley looked like he was part of her. He was so close to her face.
Yeah, it was.
But what a beautiful moment. That Laura, that scene where Laura's, Tess is taking it all in and going on that ride of all those emotions and seeing her, everything that we know about the relationship and how they're drifting apart, and seeing that and watching him talk about being with somebody else for the first time in 20 years, and then talking about the fact that he misses his wife, and talking about an argument that they had in the car, and her remembering it in real time with us and sharing that vulnerability. Incredible moment. A real conversation that I actually had with somebody, the one about I wish you talked to me like you talk to your friends, and I did say to that person, dude, my wife's driving me crazy.
Oh, that person.
Shit, that could do it.
But I will say also that kind of vulnerability, when you're experiencing it and whatever you're bringing to it in your own work, you don't expect, yes, your director to be right here, and also Peyton Manning to be next to you.
Forgot about that, yeah, Peyton was right next to you.
That's what was happening.
Everyone, please thank Will Arnett Laura.
All right. Yeah.